Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for another video on Marvel Contest of Champions. This one is focused on characters that are not really considered to be the best ones in game. Largely the reason I want to do this is so that I can as well get out the attitude of going, okay, so that's a trash champion for whatever reason, and maybe look at the viability in different content, and at the same time going, right, well not everybody gets to have the Corvus Glaives, the Ghosts, the other champions that are rated so amazingly in the game. Some people have to settle, especially when they start the game, with whatever they get, and whether or not they can utilize the champion. This is going to be one of those videos, and hopefully a prolonged series where I continue to do that. And before we get into the video, please consider hitting the subscribe button and putting post notifications on. And if you want to join, please hit the join button. And yes, it does cost per month, but if you want to support me as a creator, that would be fantastic. If not, please like the video and share it with some people within the community. That would be helpful as well. But I digress, let's focus on the champion in question, and that is Red Skull. Okay, let's learn a bit more about Red Skull. So, as you know, his name is Johann Schmidt. And the fact is, he was working for a Jewish shopkeeper, and this was the point in time where nobody was giving him any attention, and this young girl, the daughter of the shopkeeper called Esther, gave him some attention. He was like, okay, so I'm going to go for you. You are my person, you are my love. And he tried it on with her, and she was like, no, I'm having none of this. The fury that was inside of him was building, and he just then murdered her. So that was great, wasn't it? That's the start point of when he had these vicious, murderous, and world hate-filled kind of thoughts in his head, and he needed to exact them. And the rest, they say, is history. A few years later, Schmidt found himself working in a hotel as a bellboy, and he saw Hitler taking his rage out on the head of the Gestapo, and as a result was like, hey, this bellboy here could do a better job, and was like, I'm going to train him as my protege. And as a result, this kind of worked for so many reasons. He saw the hate that Red Skull had, or Schmidt had at the time, and saw the Red Skull kind of emerging in the future. So he was like, yes, let's teach you a thing or two about killing. In later years, Hitler built a secret base for Red Skull to exact all of his ideas, technological weapons, cyborgs, the lot. As World War II raged on, so many different plans, so many different weaponry were invented in order to help break down and destroy the world. But it all came to a head, and we all know how the story of World War II ended. But how it ended for Red Skull was he went into suspended animation. There's a big standoff, similar to the film, where they're on a bridge or they're in a type of bunker, and there's a grenade that goes off, and Red Skull's wounded, and at the same time, you've got Captain America who has to go to England because he gets trapped by Baron Mordo. He goes into suspended animation, so does Red Skull, and that's them quiet for a few years. Many years after being reanimated, he found himself thinking to himself, right, well, we've got Hitler dead, I need to take over the world and thwart world peace. He has the cosmic cube in his power, and at the same time was like, hey, I've buried these massive bits of weaponry underground for usage to take over the world. But as it always seems to be, Captain America saves the day and the evil villain is thwarted. Now there's a further story that his body is actually robotic, and in fact he can't return back to his older body. There's kind of weird stories that are associated with Red Skull. I strongly suggest to go to the link in the description and find out more about this character. But let's return to Rich in the game to discuss the character and his abilities further. The main aspect to his signature ability is all about gaining power and also about putting in a good amount of shock damage. Unfortunately, it's just for a short period of time. But the signature ability does scale. The more signature stones you put on, the more damage he theoretically will do, and also power gain. And as a tech champion, he gains from the two things which the tech class seem to get, and that is armor and block proficiency. Now it's kind of cool that the champion starts with armor up buffs. Now it would be better if they were passive ones, so they didn't interact with a lot of other champions, and therefore the opportunity to be nullified. But the fact is, there are some other things that are quite cool about the character. Now this is the thing that's cool. If you've got an armor block on, and say the enemy is doing the basic attacks, then you're absorbing your armor up buffs, and then what you're doing is putting out direct damage and power draining the enemy at the same time. Now, it's better when the champion is awakened for that power gaining and also the shock damage, but the fact is, having this is still pretty cool. Now, I don't like the fact that the enemy is gaining power. That's one thing that's crap, especially if you're considering the champion is going up against something like All or Nothing. The All or Nothing node is pretty frustrating, so the fact is, this is a champion that could be great for that. Now, unfortunately, he does go under the wire of the popularity train, which kind of goes, okay, is Red Skull a popular champion to use? Maybe not so much. But the idea that you could have armor up buffs on and also allow it to block basics could mean that rather than the champion on all or nothing, going up to the L3 and just killing your game, just left, right and center. It's kind of cool to think that you don't really have to put much effort in for Red Skull to be really effective and helpful for you. And also going back to the fact of gaining armor buff, say you've got, I don't know, 5, maybe 6 on at the same time, that helps towards other things. So your critical resistance and your energy resistance at the same time. So the way that works is actually, well, quite effective going up against some difficult characters that maybe want to put energy attacks at you and also get very high critical rating. Red Skull does surprise me as a bit of an underrated power control champion, especially if you consider, well, we've got that aspect of going into blocks with basic hits on you, so the enemy's putting basic like attacks and you're just there going, yeah, you're power draining, but also at the same time they've got very quick builds of power. Then you could build to an L3, which is pretty effective. So the extent of power drain off that L3 is just as powerful, if not more powerful, than visions, as could be same way with magic. Yeah, the list goes on with champions that interact with power control. So it's definitely up there as one of the top ones. So yeah, it does strike me a little bit odd how this champion didn't really kind of get so much of a, well, build up to it and excitement. Maybe it's a case that because you're not putting in tens of thousands of damage off of like an L2, and also say the shock damage maybe not as super high, especially because you require him to be awakened a lot more in order to really maximize some direct damage. That could be the reason that he kind of swept under the rug with popularity. But definitely, I think that there's some great usage for this guy. But here's where I think that the letdown largely comes with, and that is Synergies. When the champion was released, he had only 3 Synergies, which interact with him being in armor, like states like getting a plus 20% armor, doing heal block with Punisher 2099, having Captain America link together the World War II version with well-timed blocks. If he has a buff up, they're not substantial for the character. For the purpose of damage output, I should really kind of put that in. It's more of a case of looking in more of a defensive point of view. And even with the addition of Omega Red adding in this Seeing Red synergy, it's not really applying anything great for the champion. The idea that you charge your heavy attack, you go unstoppable, and that's it. And yeah, if you get broken while you're unstoppable, you go into a heavy attack, which could work, but then if you get caught or clipped with a flurry of basic hits or light attacks, then that could break your heavy attack. From what I gather, I don't think it's unblockable. So yeah, that's not really a great improvement from an offensive point of view. Also, the more I look at it, the more I kind of feel that the second part to the signature ability, where it says that when an opponent dashes in. Now, I did miss that out a moment ago when reading this, and that's the key thing there, that if it was the case, it wasn't all about dashing in. Because if you think about it, you have to time that heavy attack. It's not a case of making it really easy for yourself, that you go, what I like to do is hit into a parry and then hit into a heavy attack. This is the way that I play out with Dormammu in order to put a soul bond on effect on, and then obviously build up to then do a soul bond detonation. But it's easier to do a heavy attack once in parry as opposed to this one, which basically requires the running into it. So you have a two-parter with this. So if the AI guesses you, then what's the point of this signature ability? That I just don't think that's very good from Kabam's perspective to put that in. And it's all about, yes, does the champion damage output lots from this? Not so much when it comes to the shock damage or the energy damage. So the first part is quite effective. So the heavy charging in order to power gain, yeah, okay, I rate that. Especially if you're looking to build up to an L1, an L2, or an L3, just constantly putting that in, it could be quite fun. But mainly the aspect of power draining seems to be the most viable thing about this character, as well as the hill blocking. I do like that. I think that's quite cool. And the way to play this out would be to gain loads of armor buffs, then to do an SP2, and then to try and see if you can repeat the stage, just building up those stacks and seeing if there's good viability for that shock damage. Yeah, absolutely. Good champion. Very enjoyable. But it's something that a character that is swept under the rug, where other champions that damage output huge amounts obviously are going to be hugely popular in game. So there we have it, a full diagnostic on the champion of Red Skull, featuring some footage of him playing out against different scenarios. If you enjoyed a video like this, then hit the like button and subscribe for Marvel Contest of Champions based content. Join us on the Discord server where we have a videos request section and I can add your champion to the chosen list. Also check out the playlist to see if the champion has been mentioned in the past. And finally go to marvelsynergy.com, support what they're doing there, because at the end of the day, these guys put so much effort into gathering together information on synergies of champions, which I do use in videos, and it helps rather than trading through loads of different champions to go this one with this one, this one with this one. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye for now.